It's really impossible to remember all of the fake and frivolous controversies that the internet has given us. That's part of the fake and frivolous package, I suppose. They're also forgettable. But one such controversy has stood out and will be remembered, at least by me. That's the controversy surrounding the man who is known now as Bean Dad. Now, some background. John Roderick is a musician, podcast host who became infamous on Twitter last month after he tweeted out a thread detailing his daughter's experience with a can opener. Now, in a long, very unnecessarily long story, he explained that his daughter wanted to open a can of beans, but rather than do it for her, he had her figure it out for herself as a kind of teaching opportunity. And he says it took her hours trying to open the can before she finally did it. And he posted this as sort of a congratulations to himself for being a good dad. But the world and Twitter didn't see it that way. The thread went viral. People were outraged. They accused him of abuse, psychological abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse. They said that he was starving his daughter. They said that he's a horrible person, et cetera, and so forth. Then they started digging up his old tweets, of course, and next thing you know, he's not only a bad father, abusive, but racist too. So he's racist and abusive. All of this stuff happened, and eventually he apologized and deactivated his account, but it was too late. Meanwhile, back in Realityville, it's obvious that the story was an exaggeration. The girl was not working on a can of beans for hours. Give me a break. And even if she was, it's not abuse. Presumably, she's not malnourished. He is feeding her. He never said that her continued access to food was predicated on her ability to get the can open. He didn't say that. So even if he was being a jerk about the can, whatever. Calling that abuse is insane. And look, I have never been in a situation where my kids were trying to open a can for 6 hours, so I've never done that. But all of us as parents, we have moments where our kids ask us to do something, and we could do it for them. It would be very easy for us to do, but for whatever reason, we just don't feel like doing it, and so we say, no, look, you figure that out for yourself. I'm not doing it. So all parents have moments like that. And it's good to have moments like that. It's good for the kid to have to figure something out. 6 hours opening a can is a little bit excessive, but even so. So there was no abuse here, and Bean Dad's real crime, if he committed one, was in being a tool who tries to, brag about his own excellent parenting on the internet, or what he thinks is excellent parenting. And if that's the crime, then that's the one he committed, but that doesn't make him a child abuser, right? Or so I thought. An update on this story from Reason, written by Lenore Skenazy. It says, Roderick recently divulged a new wrinkle in the story, which makes it clear that it was not just an online kerfuffle. For his afternoon of bean withholding, Roderick actually earned a visit from the Child Protective Services. In Roderick on the Line, his weekly podcast with Merlin Mann, Roderick said, a dozen people reported me to CPS and they were obligated to come interview my family and interrogate my daughter. Thankfully, the CPS visit went well. They were wonderful, said Roderick, and they were just doing their jobs. Apparently, one investigator told Roderick's daughter for about an hour, or rather spoke to Roderick's daughter for about an hour privately, asking questions like, what do you like about your dad? And what do you not like about your dad? Roderick's daughter told him about this afterward. Turns out she doesn't like the fact that he gets tired of playing Legos faster than she does. Okay, so that's a report from Reason. Child Protective Services. Because he made his daughter open a can of beans on her own. This is the kind of thing that keeps parents up at night, right? This right here. Not because we have similar family drama involving cans of beans, and not because we're abusive, but because CPS can be summoned to our homes very easily and for the most trivial of reasons. And once they show up, your parental rights are on the line. Of course, they're not suspended. Now, so CPS does not have the right to enter your home without permission or to speak to your child without permission. And that's something that parents, I think a lot of parents don't realize. And CPS, I think, counts on parents not realizing that. And they show up and knock on the door and they say, can we come in? Can we talk to your kid? And parents, because they are scared and they feel like their back's against the wall now, they'll say, sure, come in. And you don't have to do that. And it's a mistake to let CPS in that situation. Because think about it, they're, according to John Roderick, they're sitting down, they're talking to his daughter for an hour, saying things like, what do you... Yeah, these are fishing, leading kinds of questions. What do you not like about your dad? I mean, who knows what kind of thing a kid will say in response to that? Kids are imaginative. Kids, they don't really understand what the consequences are. They don't really know what's going on. A kid could be, the CPS could come in at a moment when the child is angry at the parent, not because they're being abused, but because kids get angry about, not being allowed to watch TV when they want to or something. And who knows what they'll say. So the minute you say, sure, sit down and talk to my kid for an hour, that could go anywhere. I mean, that could be the last time you see your kid for a long time, depending on how that goes. But even if you don't let the CPS in, they can go and they're not going to leave you alone after that. They can go get a court order. They can continue harassing if they choose. Once CPS is in your life, it can be very difficult to get them out. And just the simple fact that they showed up at your door carries a stigma that may never go away, even if, again, you're totally innocent. As the article in Reason lays out, the system is broken. Anyone can report abuse. They can do it anonymously. They can do it as many times as they want, and all reports are investigated, no matter how obviously frivolous they are. This was a report based on a publicly available internet post. Okay, the people calling CPS on Bean Dad, they were doing it based on a tweet. There is no good reason for the government to respond to that at all. If we allowed just a little bit of judgment and discretion, then CPS could have looked at the report, looked at the tweet in question, and said, never mind, this is absurd. Oh, that's what you're calling about that? What? No, we're not gonna go knock on the guy's door. But instead, everything these days, especially in government, operates according to the zero tolerance policy, the zero tolerance sort of philosophy. And what that means is that all situations will be treated exactly the same. No discernment, no discretion, no human judgment will enter the equation at all. We are to act as robots, according to the programming. The Reason article references a report in the New York Daily News that's very relevant here. It says, quote, over the past 40 years, more and more people have been calling the child abuse hotlines, not because there's so much child abuse going on, but because they've been conditioned to report almost anything, a kid with a scrape, a kid walking the dog, as possible abuse or neglect. Better safe than sorry. But how safe? How sorry? According to one estimate, more than half of all African American children, 53%, will be visited by Child Protective Services at some point in their childhood. That compared to 37% of all children, which is already outrageous. Now, 37% of all children sounds enormously high. I almost have to doubt that it could 37%? Maybe that is as bad as it's gotten. All told, it says 7.8 million kids get reported to Child Protective Services each year, and that is literally 7 million kids too many. The mind-bogglingly vast majority of calls turn out to not be cases of abuse or neglect at all. While tragically child abuse and neglect deaths do occur, these cases represent 2 out of every 100,000 hotline calls. 2 out of 100,000. And as the number of calls has gone up in the last 2 decades, the number of deaths has not gone down. That's right, abuse deaths increased, possibly because caseworkers are stretched so thin. The important thing to remember here is that all of these millions of frivolous child abuse reports and investigations are not victimless. It's not like nobody is hurt by just checking on the claim, right? Better safe than sorry. No, that's not always the case. When it's a frivolous child abuse claim or report, and then this innocent parent ends up in the crosshairs of CPS and their parental rights are on the line, and they could possibly lose their parental rights and lose their children, even though they didn't do anything wrong. That is not better safe than sorry. Lots of families are hurt, destroyed, ripped apart. Once the parents become officially suspected child abusers, that's what happens. The system is indeed broken. Fixing it will be complicated work, but one thing that's needed in order to fix it is a return to situational judgment, discretion, not treating everything the same as everything else. Not all child abuse reports are created equal. They're not all the same. Okay, a kid goes to school and he's got very suspicious looking bruises, or he looks to be malnourished or something like that, that's clearly, you call CPS for that. But someone writes a tweet about their kid opening a can of beans, or you see an 8-year-old that was allowed to go down to the playground, 100 yards from the house by himself, walk the dog down the street. He's got a scrape on his knee. No, those are not the same. So this is one thing. Situational judgment, discretion, letting human beings discern and make judgments based on that. Not all child abuse reports are created equal. The Bean Dad case shows that, as so many other cases show that as well. And that's why the people who reported Bean Dad are officially canceled. Listen, hit that subscribe button right now. Do it right now. I thank you for your compliance. It is somewhat appreciated.